Welcome, everybody. It's Nate Kosman, the Rosslow Financial Group. We're here for Money is a Sport. I believe that money is a sport, and everybody plays it, whether they realize it or not. I also believe from my years of athletics that people who have a coach do much better. And what we intend to do here today is draw some parallels between money and sports and talk about how coaching can help you improve the outcomes. And hopefully you can all learn something along the way. Super excited to have Trenton Macke here as my co-host. Welcome.
Thank you, Nate.
And maybe share with the audience a little bit about your role here with the Rosslow Financial Group.
So again, my name is Trenton Macke. I started here as an intern about winter of 2018, and then flipped into assistant advisor role, basically helping out Nate Kosman here, Ryan Tomenko, and several other advisors around the office. That started 3 years of last May. I am now flipped onto a full advisor here. So I'm now building my practice and helping out the fellow other assistant advisors and other advisors here at Rosslow Financial Group.
Great job, man. Matriculating the ball down the field, right? Yeah, good. Played some sports yourself, right? Rugby?
I played rugby in high school, played actually against your son. And
that's right.
Coached against me.
Yeah.
And then played rugby at Ohio University, where I was captain there for 2 years. And then currently play with Queen City Rugby Football Club, which is where my dad and grandpa played. And then some summer sessions with the Hounds where you and your son played.
Yeah.
Wrestled, and that's probably the only other sport. But rugby is definitely the one where it comes together.
A lot of people think RFG stands for Rugby Financial Group.
Yep.
We've got 5 current or former ruggers here.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you're the only one that showed up here where that's not how I knew you.
Yeah.
So, I knew my son because he's my son.
Right.
But anyway.
Small world kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's funny how people gravitate towards each other.
Sure.
So, but before I introduce our guest, want to introduce a financial concept that we talk about a lot here, dollar cost averaging. Can you kind of explain what dollar cost averaging is?
Yeah.
And,
So we have a piece here. I don't know if you guys have seen it on our fellow advisors that would show onto our clients here, but this is on our website that we give to people. So dollar cost averaging is a basic money concept where you invest fixed dollar amount every month, every quarter, every year, so on and so forth. And that's it's very simple because people do it without even knowing, right? So if you take someone's 401k, take our 401k here, you take that percentage, 4%, 5%, whatever it is, and you buy the same amount every single month, every single quarter, so on. The reason it's so powerful is that you buy them on sale. If it's down market like it is right now, you buy them cheap.
you're buying more shares.
Correct.
Excuse me.
For cheaper.
Yeah.
So, and everyone does it, again, without even realizing it. So if you're not doing it, more than likely you are doing it.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful, and over the course of time, you'll most likely going to have more money by doing it than not doing it.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Your average cost per share becomes lower than the average cost of the security, right?
Right.
Yeah. So obviously that's real important in an environment like this where the market's been trending down. And what are some other examples of where people are doing that and maybe don't necessarily realize they're doing it?
I would say more like contributing to the Roth.
Systematic contribution.
Right. So if we're say for our clients, for example, if we were going to link their bank account to their Roth or traditional IRA, pull the funds out just like a bill would every month. It's very easy.
Yeah. So it's a form of discipline.
Right.
Yeah. Just kind of like showing up to the gym every day and going to work, right?
You got to choose your heart.
Yeah. So great. Well, we'll probably get back into some other things related to that at some point here, but I want to introduce Andy Mignery. Known Andy a long time. We've done business with Andy's company, Hines, for probably a good 15, 20 years. Your predecessor, Jim White. And we've co-invested, I'll say, a lot of clients of RFG's money in real estate portfolios with Hines. And Andy grew up in the Cincinnati area and went to Hamilton High School, correct?
I did.
Yeah.
Hamilton Big Blue.
Yeah. we'll come back to some of that. But tell us a little bit about your career path, how you landed in the financial services industry, and how you landed in particular at Hines.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm from the area. I grew up in Hamilton, Ohio, here locally. If you're watching this or listening to this, you know where Hamilton is, but for people outside of Cincinnati, just northwest from downtown, just north of I-75, about 25-minute drive. So from the Cincinnati area, I went to Hamilton Big Blue Public School, and then I had the great fortune to play and continue my athletic career with the University of Michigan, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's where I really got to start with some business courses there at the University of Michigan, just learning the financial markets. And then I had some great mentors from a professor standpoint that really started leading me down the financial world, and specifically real estate. I fell in love with hard assets and real estate as a young investor. And it just so happens that one of my good friends was hired by Hines, and it's Hines, Hines out of Houston, Texas, and it's a large global firm. And so when I was done playing football, I moved back to Ann Arbor, Michigan at the time. And luckily, you know, it's an old cliche, who you know, and I got an opportunity with my friend getting promoted, and he needed to make a decision to fill his old spot. And so that's where I fell into an opportunity, and one of the best career moves that I've had. I was in another role at another financial institution, and I took advantage of it and came over to Hines, and here I am, 15 years later.
Yeah. So, we'll go off script a little bit there, but it's kind of like being in the right place at the right time, it sounds like, for your
It is, but I also had to make sure they realized they were hiring the right person. And even though I didn't go to Harvard or Yale to get included with Hines, I was young at the time, and basically had to sell them on my work ethic, and that goes back to sports, and they took a chance on me. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go a little bit out of order here and say something about your career at Michigan. And in a lot of ways, I think, people might consider your career at Michigan almost the opposite of that. You landed at Michigan in a very competitive quarterback room. I believe you were a All-American in high school. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. One of the most highly sought-after quarterbacks in the whole country, and you landed in a quarterback room with few names we probably know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was you talk about competition and really knowing what you're getting into at the time. So it was the late '90s. I arrived at U of M, and there are a few people that a lot of people would recognize if they follow collegiate and in the NFL, but one name was Drew Henson. So Drew Henson was everything multi-sport baseball and pro baseball and collegiate football at the time. So you have Drew Henson, who was everything coming out of Brighton, Michigan, and then a guy by the name of Tom Brady.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if anybody's heard of Tom Brady.
I think. Yeah.
So you had Drew Henson, Tom Brady, and then another guy by the name of John Navarre, who was a 3-year starter at Michigan. He played in the NFL. He set all kinds of passing records at U of M. And so that's right off the heels of...
He probably had the best career
in
the room, and maybe the least known.
2 Big Ten championships, and we had some great years there from 99 to 2003, which were my 5 years, and I was redshirted the first year. But, you really had to put your work boots on and go to work every day and pack your lunch, as I used to always say. And, let's give it my best and compete against the best in the world. And I didn't know that at the time. Tom Brady would be the best in the GOAT and quarterback. But so I was ultimately ended up getting beat out by Tom Brady, and I converted to tight end. Yeah. So that's we can talk about that later. But that's really a fun story to tell, and it gets more and more enjoyable to tell that story when I say, the name you haven't heard, maybe a name and Tom Brady. And
yeah, sure.
By the way, I was hanging out with him a couple weekends ago in Tampa, so
that's great.
That was good to reconnect.
Yeah, I bet. So you stay in touch with a lot of the guys from Michigan.
Yeah, we do, and we had a special group. Lloyd Carr was our head coach at the time. We were coming off Big Ten championships, a national championship, and we were doing it right. And it wasn't because we had a bunch of 5-star athletes, but we had a team. We played as a team, we worked well as a team, and we trusted. In football, like rugby and so many other sports out there, you just don't have 2 players. It's not tennis or golf. You have to have your team, and you have to have a lot of trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
People who want to work.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your family.
So my immediate family. I married my college sweetheart, Anna, who she was a track athlete, Anna Fisher at the time at Michigan. So I started dating and courting her in college, and we got married pretty quickly after college there, and we started having children right away. So we have a 15-year-old boy, a 13-year-old girl. It's actually her birthday today, and then a 10-year-old boy. So boy, girl, boy. So busy with young teenagers, travel sports, and we lived in Ann Arbor for about 20 years. And about just over a year ago, we picked up the family, and we had a great run in Ann Arbor and the Midwest here. We decided to move to Sarasota, Florida, so south of Tampa, just a boom area economy-wise, and it felt right for us. And it's on a family adventure, and sports down there for youth. Youth sports are a major focus. Terrific.
Good schools.
Good schools. We're in Lakewood Ranch, which is right off 75, just outside of Sarasota. And life is grand, busy as heck. And I travel a lot for work with Hines, but Anna's, she's doing a great job. We actually own a cold pressed juicery in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we're opening up a site in Sarasota, Florida too. So got a lot going on. It's called Thrive Juicery, but it's busy, man.
Yeah, talk about how you got into that business.
Well, I had a horrific about 5 years ago. I can't believe it started that
I remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a friend for sure. So, riding high on life, if you will, just crushing it, and young family and moving along until God may, I believe anyways, taps you on the shoulder a little bit, and next thing you know, I have a rare form of lung cancer, and I was a non-smoker, and I had a tumor that we were able to isolate, find, and diagnose, but then it was operable. And luckily, we were able to get that figured out. Even though I lost half of my right lung as a young male, that was a very difficult time. But the healing process and health, like food is thy medicine and medicine is thy food, I really take to heart. And the preventative care and the acidic American diet so many have, I went ahead and made huge adjustments in my life, and it's been fantastic, kind of to live this next phase of my life as more of a healthy individual. And so that's what started the business. Is we really wanted to pay that forward to other people in our local markets where we have this juicery, and give them a good option to choose from.
You guys distribute?
We do not, and one of the big reasons you can't distribute green juice like vegetable juice is you'd have to pasteurize it. So the only place that you can get pure, raw, phytonutrient, alive juice is at a grocery store if they press it, or at a pure juicery. But as soon as you decide to distribute it, it's what I like to say dead juice, because why would you want to consume a green juice that was pressed 32 days later or 25 days later?
Yeah.
You want to consume it pretty much right away or within 2 days, 2-3 days.
Yeah, that's interesting. You and I hadn't talked about that much until just recently.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty amazing that you were able to, take a pretty challenging time in your life and turn it into a thriving, no pun intended, business. And
for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
so what's the
not
plan
easy.
there? We franchise it, or
that's definitely the plan. So we'll have success in the north in Ann Arbor, success in Sarasota. Over time, hopefully, we found a location. Very difficult to find a very good location. Found a location there, and so we'll do the build out and get that going first quarter next year. And our goal is to team up the franchisor, which pretty much we already have that solidified, and then move forward and get our first 20 is really the success of the future of the franchisor. And we think we've got a business plan. It works, and you can go to sleep peacefully as a franchisee, serving juice and healthy smoothies, the smoothies that aren't adult ice cream like so many other franchisees, franchisors offer. I mean, I think that's a big hoax out there. Everybody thinks a smoothie is healthy, and that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
Depending on what it's made from.
Right. Are there any lessons you learned in a competitive quarterback room, or some of those disappointments maybe of playing behind
absolutely.
John DeBar or Drew Henson, or that helped you get through your battle with lung cancer?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Nate. The fact that you have to come to work and bring 100% every single day, and you are getting evaluated every single day, and all eyes are on you being the quarterback. You're the leader of the huddle. You're the general, if you will, on the field, and you've got to be very decisive. and take ownership on the field that this is your offense, and you got to move the team down the field, and be that leader and captain, if you will, that everybody gathers around, and be personable. And so it was very difficult just because of the demands of the job at a high level. I decided to go to Michigan because I wanted to go as big as I could to be a quarterback, and ultimately it didn't work. I converted to tight end, but it wasn't easy. However, what that allowed me to do is I took all those lessons I learned of being extremely disciplined and a responsible, accountable teammate and a quarterback, and you transcend all those attributes into the business world. And that's really what I found was it was fairly easy to me to win in the business world based on everything I've learned from the quarterback room, and then ultimately just winning at a high level in the Big Ten.
Yeah. You talked about being the general and the captain and the quarterback. Who's the general and the captain and the quarterback at Thrive? Is that you or is that Anna?
Time is essential. My wife Anna, she runs the operations, so every day that's her job, and she's doing it from afar right now. We have an operations manager in Ann Arbor, but yeah, she's I'm obviously in charge of all the high level. Well, my wife and I should say, not just me, but it's running a business and starting a business, to live in a country, to be able to take risk with your hard-earned capital, to start a business and be a part of the economy and hire people and take care of their families. And, you have the ability to do that in America. And so we're just fortunate to take that leap. One of the hardest things to do is taking that leap and starting a business. But every great American company started with, one.
That's right.
From there.
Yeah, that's right.
Dream too, to have that independence.
Yeah. So do you guys, we rarely stay on script.
Let's get back to dollar cost averaging.
You guys follow the same principles as Hines. Do you own your real estate, or do you lease your real estate?
Yeah, so we're big advocates of owning real estate, but then we take advantage of all these corporations around the world that lease space from Hines, and our Hines Real Estate Investment Trust that we offer as a public non-traded REIT. So we really believe in long-term ownership in real estate, what we call core assets around the world, and in developed economies outside the United States and international front here, in developed markets here across the United States and different sectors of the real estate market. And yes, there's nothing wrong with tenants paying rent like clockwork every single month, depending on how a lease is set up. So, constant cash flow is really what we strive at Hines. And over the years, we've done well.
Yeah, that's great. You're a pilot too, right?
Not a pilot, but I really like the aviation world. So I don't fly the plane that I own a partnership in. It's called a Cirrus SR-22, Cirrus with a C. I've managed a lot of the territory in the Midwest by hiring a pilot to fly me around, but it's not a jet or anything. It's not. It's a single piston. So we go to Lunkin all the time, which is great. You can fly to Ann Arbor, you can fly to Indianapolis, and it's a very durable, safe aircraft. And one of the reasons why my wife allows me to use it, it has its own. The entire plane has its own parachute. So some of the individuals listening to this or watching it live, just Google Cirrus SR-22 parachute deployment, and you'll be fascinated for a while. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I always thought that was interesting when you come to see us, and I got to run down to Lunkin. I got a plane waiting for me. Most of us don't get to travel that way.
Right. But a big difference. This is not a jet. This is a single piston, single engine airplane, which is very cost effective, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You still can fly though.
What's that?
You still can fly.
Oh,
so you're slowly turning into like the most interesting man in the world.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about. We've talked about some of it, but let's talk about your athletic career. If I recall from some early conversations with you and knowing the history of Hamilton, started out with baseball, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
So I was a baseball player. We were fortunate enough to have a great support system in Hamilton, Ohio with Little League Baseball. And that was back when Little League, and it probably still is here in Cincinnati, Little League has got a strong support here, and people play Little League instead of travel from day one.
Right.
But back in the 90s and late 80s, Little League was everything. Really before the whole movement of the so-called travel ball year-round and a really isolation and focus of one sport. So I was a great a run there in Little League, Hamilton Little League. They've sent 4 teams to the Little League World Series in the matter of 30 years from that one Little League. And it's usually just one side, either American or National, in that 12-year-old all-star team. And we were American. We beat the Nationals. And, there was a lot of talent split up in Hamilton that year. And we still, our all-stars in the American went all the way to the Little League World Series. You win states. You were in states, and you go to regional, which is Indianapolis, and then you go to World. And at that time, there was only 8 teams. Now I think there's 16 teams. There's 8 teams. Being on ESPN and being 12 to have that type of success early, you really start to figure out what athletics can do for you as a platform if you succeed.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Like, did you say anything stupid on that card that they always ask you, like those facts, like what?
A nickname.
Yeah, what's
That's
your
right.
your,
Probably.
What's your favorite
I don't remember the
boy
exact.
band was? Or you remember any of that stuff?
I don't, but I do remember.
I tried to research it.
There was dorms. Everybody had their own dorms, and they were not renovated. They were probably the same dorms there from the 1930s. But the facilities, once you get the actual stadium itself, was amazing. We had the largest, and I think it still holds to this day, the largest opening day crowd. It was like 10,000 plus people to watch a Little League game.
Yeah.
And we were playing, I want to say it was Thousand Oaks, California. And Sean Burroughs, who ended up being a San Diego Padre for a long time, he was the pitcher, and they ultimately won. But he was a dog, man.
Yeah.
I mean, being in Little League, when you got a stallion on the mound and throwing in the 90s, like it's faster reaction time than in major leagues. I mean, it's smoking in there. So that was a great run. It started.
What's that like when you're 12 years old
and
with that kind of pressure?
But that ultimately helped me being a quarterback for my father, who we haven't talked about yet, but Hamilton High School, the Big Blue, Division I, GMC, playing against the Coleraines and the Princetons and getting into the playoffs and the Molars and the St. X's and so on and so forth. That did help me handle it. And you realize, like, wait a second, I've done a lot more than a lot of other people out here, and you focus in, like, I can do this. And, not create, just wilt under pressure. And I really embraced it. I loved being out there. Yeah, of course I had butterflies, and I was nervous for big games or playoff games, but in high school football. But it really propelled my career, and from a maturity level. We go back to the Little League World Series. I want to say maybe of the, we may have had 15 guys on the team, guessing. I can't remember exactly, but there's like 9 of them didn't even pan out.
Yeah. But
they had a lot of success early. Next thing you know, they get a lot of people patting them on the back early at 12, and things just kind of fall apart, and they think it's just going to go with them. But it's you got to stick with it, and I ended up playing football, not baseball. But Little League in Hamilton, Ohio, was a great run.
Yeah. So you kind of alluded to it. Your dad was your high school coach. Yeah.
Yes,
what was that experience
Ed
like?
Mignery. He was around Cincinnati for a long time, and Dayton and Trotwood, Madison, and so I grew up in a football family with a football in my crib. Dad was the head high school football coach in Southwest Ohio at big-time high schools, and it was great to kind of see his career blossom and do really well at Hamilton. He grew up in Hamilton. He played at Hamilton-Baden, but he was a high school coach ever since then. Crazy story. Jim Harbaugh's dad, Jack Harbaugh, was at Morehead State. His first ever college recruit, his first year at Morehead State was my dad.
Okay.
So the Harbaughs, the Mignerys, they've at least known each other. My dad and Jack Harbaugh for a long time. Obviously, Jim, head coach of Michigan, but my dad always he loves telling that story. So he played, he was an All-American Division II at Morehead State, and then settled back in the Cincinnati area. And so played for my dad. I'm fortunate to play with my brother, too. He played at the Air Force Academy, and he was a tight end. But we had some great seasons at Hamilton back in the day. Great blue-collar town.
Yeah. I think, is it Jack Harbaugh? Mm-hmm. I think he recruited me to play at Western Kentucky.
Yep.
And then I know I had an opportunity to speak with whichever brother was at University of Cincinnati.
Yeah,
also.
That's right.
And so that was a fun process.
John Harbaugh.
That's right. So tell me about your recruiting process after
Well, I knew I wanted to play football in college, and growing up at the Buckeye State, my father was really good friends with John Cooper at the time.
Sure.
Well, John Cooper at the time was getting beat up heavily by the Ohio high school, just coaches, because he was really the first guy to implement national recruiting outside of Ohio.
Yeah.
And sometimes he would leap over Ohio kid to get in an Arizona kid or California kid. And he was building great teams, but he lost a lot of the relationships of high school big-time programs that were pumping kids to the Buckeyes all the time. And he was getting beat by, obviously, Michigan at the time. He went, like, I think 2-9-1 or whatever that record was. And it's flip-flopped, obviously, since then. But I wanted to go at the time. Academics were a big thing to me. Opportunity at quarterback, and not just be an athlete scholarship, but a bona fide quarterback offer. Michigan gave me that. And, they were winning in all these different sports. And I know there's a big award for collegiate, all multiple sports winning at a time. And they were winning that trophy all the time. And that meant a lot to me. And I also wanted to be different, too. So the recruiting came down to John Cooper at Ohio State, Lloyd Carr in Michigan, and Philip Fulmer at Tennessee. I love Tennessee. Hey, you get down to Knoxville, I'm telling you right now, there's a love for football in Cincinnati. Down in Knoxville, the Tennessee Volunteers, Rocky Top. Yeah, the Volunteers. That's hopefully they're getting back on track here, and I think there's going to be a great separation of teams that can afford the money with NIL and some of the teams that won't.
That's right. Wow, that's the future. I mean,
It's going to change the game.
it's changed the game already, right? I mean, look at Texas A&M this past recruiting season.
And with oil, the prices it's at right now,
Yeah.
trust me, there's some checks.
Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah,
Student transfer is going to change too.
And the other thing is
the transfer portal is
transfer portal. You're only there, like, I'm talking about a decision I knew it was going to be 5 years. I wanted to stick with it. I had the opportunity to leave, but that wasn't a popular thing to do. You had to sit out 1 year unless you get one AA. I got beat out by quarterback, but beat out by I didn't want to start starting quarterback. So at that point, I took like 6 months. I thought I was going to transfer out of Michigan, and that was frowned upon big time. But let's also call it like it is. A lot of these college coaches, they turned it into what it is with what they're making, the demands that they have, with no penalty on leaving, and still getting paid. And so it is a business that's filtered down to individuals. Where just 20 years ago, I mean, you took an offense coordinator and making $250,000 a year, and they like to stay there for 10 years.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Well, you're fortunate you had choices, but it shows a lot about you that you stuck with it and stayed there and reallocated, if you will, to tight end. And,
that was not an easy adjustment.
No, I can't imagine. And so, if I'm not mistaken, from there you got an opportunity to play a little bit in the NFL.
So I did. I was a rookie free agent. So you only have 7 undrafted rookie free agent. Got to work your way into it. Being in Cincinnati here, some of your clients listening in, Anthony Munoz was my representative from an agent standpoint. So got to know.
I didn't know he was an agent. Had no idea.
Oh yeah. Well, he was getting ready for his son that played at Tennessee.
That's right.
And he was a year or two younger than I was.
Yeah.
So he was setting up his agency to work with his son. So we were the first year, and he took me under his wing, and I was down here in Cincinnati getting ready to go for camp, and also just with the whole draft situation. And I was working out with Anthony Munoz, and me as a tight end, he was teaching me really how to block. So here I was with Anthony Munoz, the best in the world at left tackle, and he's teaching me how to block. Some of the best memories, football period, as far as practice is concerned. And we would get up at 6 a.m, and he treated me as if I was a first-round draft pick. And I'll never forget that. I keep in touch periodically with him here in Cincinnati, and what a great man he is.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many years do you stick with the Pats?
So the Pats was not even one. I blew up my right hip, got out there, made a name for myself to where Coach Belichick actually remembered my name. That was a big day. It took like 6 months for him to. He was like, "Oh, Mignery." He was walking down the hallway one time, where before he would just completely not even acknowledge my existence. But that felt good. So I got to that point, reconnecting with Tom Brady out there, and that was a pinnacle of football itself. But I ended up having a pretty major injury. I tore my right hip flexor. We were loaded with tight ends. We had 3 first-round picks. It's like Forcier, it was Dan Graham and Ben Watson,
Yeah.
and then rookie free agent Andy Mignery.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, you talk about being pushed, and that was just another example. I had to mentally know that I wasn't, that person that had that type of athletic ability. I was legit, and I had great opportunity in practice squad, and I was one play away from actually playing here and there. But just going in with your best every single day and not making any mental mistakes. So when you're just below, you've got to give them every reason to trust you when they put you out there, knowing that some guys may actually make mental mistakes, but they're better athletes. But when they put me out there, I'm not going to make those mental mistakes.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was a great run too, being out there, the Patriots, and learning their systems. But when I did fly back to Ann Arbor after I blew up my right hip, I was ready to move on. It was just a ton of pressure. I knew there was other ways to make money, and when you're in the NFL, make no mistake, you're there to make money.
Sure.
And I just recently got married there in Ann Arbor, and it's my wife Anna, and we decided to stay put in Ann Arbor and hang up my cleats. And that was tough because the Dolphins came calling, NFL Europe came calling thereafter, and I just decided, I said, let's get this moving with the next career move, and that ended up being a great move for me.
Yeah. Well, so unlike some of those stories, you end up in the right place, right time. You end up at Hines. And what are some of those key lessons you learned through sports that translate into business and into investing, into financial planning, really?
Well, I always think about, it's overused, but being disciplined. And if you're not disciplined in sports, you're just not going to find a spot on the playing field.
Yeah.
So being disciplined, not making mistakes mentally, and from there, not being lazy. Lazy doesn't get you any success in the sports world. I always talk about it where, the head coach usually doesn't stand up in the football room and say, hey, Johnny over there in the tight end room, he's working his tail off just like the two starters. And, he does everything right. We know he's not good enough to be the starter, but because he's working and, everything's the same and he's going to get the starting. He's going to get the starting bid against Ohio State. It doesn't work that way. And so when you think the world that we live in today, it teaches you so much of accountability, the way you treat your teammates, your reputation on the team, your work ethic, all those, items you learn, and then how to deal with failure. Same in the investment world. Not every deal is a home run. So how are you going to go back to shareholders and tell them, hey, well, these are the reasons why this one deal may not have went what we thought, the way it would go. And luckily at Hines, it doesn't happen very often. But the point is when you have failures, how do you handle those failures? So I look to sports and the way I was raised to do it right, but bring a good attitude every day.
Yeah. Well, and behavioral finance, we always talk about it around here, is a lot of people do the wrong thing at the wrong time. And, you touched on it early, Trenton, with dollar cost averaging. That's just another form of discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going to work, putting your money in every month and staying focused on what the long-term plan is or the game plan is. And, just because things aren't going your way doesn't mean you stop putting money towards it or, completely pivot. But sometimes you do have to reallocate. I'll say, like I mentioned before, where, maybe your best opportunity isn't at quarterback. Maybe it's at tight end. In our business, a lot of times we got to look at that with a lot of our tactical investing strategies. We're looking at maybe our best opportunity isn't in large cap or small cap. It's in, real estate, as it may be. In the environment we're in today with inflation and volatile markets and everything, those are some of the things that you got to look at and pivot.
Fixed annuities are treated right now.
Yeah,
for sure.
So
well, there's a lot going on, but you all, for as long as you've been here within the firm, and you all do a fantastic job being that head coach, but being decisive and making some changes if they're prudent, and that's what you're there to do as a head coach. If you need to fire one money manager and hire another one, you're able to do that.
Well, I think the main thing is having a plan. We rely on planning rather than it's not all about the investments. It's more about where do we want to be? What's a win for us? What's success to us? So So,
Well, let's talk about. There's a couple other things before I was introduced. You were talking about dollar cost averaging. A lot of people may be listening and they're like, "Well, I don't really have a lot of cash to dollar cost average now. It's already invested, and they may be retiring." Well, a lot of times you can kind of restart the whole DCA movement because once you retire, now you got a lump sum 401k that you could roll over. From there, you don't have to all invest it all at once. You could then then take some time and dollar cost average back into the market. Or if you do come into some cash or you've been building cash, now may be a very good time to start putting that money to work over the next 2 to 3 years.
that's right.
So, just because you've done dollar cost averaging in the past and you feel like you don't have the opportunity to do it again, that may not be the case. And so that's why you need to talk to some professionals and see maybe if there's other opportunities within the next year or so to kind of restart that.
Yeah. Hey, touch on specifically what you guys do at Hines real quick. People are scared of real estate today. And obviously, historically, real estate's been one of the best inflation hedges. But coming out of the pandemic, you're in a scenario where, a lot of people in headlines talk about office is dead, retail, everybody's shopping on Amazon anymore. Talk about where the opportunities in real estate are today.
Well, first off, real estate is not dead. It's bounced back beautifully. When the world shut down, everybody thought office was going to completely melt and retail was going to completely never come back. But in general, high-end, what we call Class A core real estate, where the average acquisition to buy individual assets are over $100 and $150 million, they tend to do well over time as an inflation hedge over a period of time, and that's because we have rent escalators. So the rent that you pay today as a Fortune 500 company and what you pay 8 years down the road, 10 years down the road is different because that is negotiated at the time of lease, and every year typically you pay more if it is what is within the lease.
Right.
But office is not dead; it's just shifted and it's evolved. And what we've heard a lot of corporations are demanding that employees get back in the office, maybe not 5 days a week, but maybe it's 3 or 4 days a week with efficiency and camaraderie, and talk about sports, and being around other people and sharing ideas. And so we think that's going to be there.
How do you form a culture in a business where everyone's working at home? That's very difficult.
How do you form it? The other big part of this is how do you train? How do you train new employees?
Yeah.
So
sure, Zoom and meetings and Teams and all those tech tools have made it possible, but it's maybe not ideal. And I think it depends on your business too, right? Yeah.
It really depends on the sector that you have. But so office is not dead. We really like the opportunities of warehouse distribution. So think of companies like Amazon with e-commerce when you press buy on an app or this or that, or think of like the Zappos and shoes, or where do they store all those goods?
Yeah.
And warehouse distribution has been a key component to our story for quite some time, and we believe that there's a lot to be said there in the industrial assets. And so buying and what we do constantly as a fund or as a REIT, real estate investment trust, is we dollar cost average because we're buying assets all along the way.
Right.
And then we're selling some assets, raising cash with new investors and raising cash within the fund, and we're continuing to buy new assets where we think the better opportunities lie.
So your allocations today, how different do they look in terms of real estate sectors? How different do they look from 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, so a big portion was we sold off our office portfolio back in 2018-19 to where we just had a small amount going into COVID, but we started to really shift to buy warehouse industrial.
Yeah.
Think of like logistics, what we call last mile distribution, where you can press a button now and you can have those goods within a day or 24 hours. And but we have seen a big opportunity there. We sold that off, but we've really increased what we call the multifamily sector, which is apartments. We really like the fundamentals behind apartments, high-end apartments catered to college-educated, white-collar type young families that are looking to buy a new house. We think with how expensive new homes are, densely populated areas with good fundamentals to support apartment buildings, all in a lot of these apartment buildings we were just talking about a little while ago. I mean, a lot of these apartment buildings are like resorts nowadays.
Yeah.
Super nice.
You seen that Freakonomics they talked a lot about basically comparing the American dream as we all grew up with of home ownership. Maybe it's not as what it's wrapped up to be.
Sometimes
So
it makes more sense to rent,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and with the people changing jobs the way they have, and this generation, maybe renting makes more sense. So there's a lot of support for that. And you mentioned another one. I don't know if you've read Delivering Happiness, but it's about the Zappos story. But basically, I mean, the statistics about the growth yet to come in e-commerce is amazing. So that seems like you're in the right spot there.
Yeah. We like it. I've been with Hines for a long time, and I like to think it's a great company.
Yeah. Anecdotally, that last mile you talked about, got a dartboard in my house, ran out of chalk. $2.50, I bought some chalk. It was literally on my doorstep 2 hours later. I cannot imagine that's a profitable delivery for Amazon.
Chalk.
Yeah. Box of chalk for our scoreboard on our dartboard. But well, hey, we're running out of time here. This has been great, but a couple quick questions. What do you do for fun today, man?
So with the ages of my kids, it's I don't have that much freedom, and I travel a lot for work. But I do really enjoy playing golf. One of my favorite things to do is in the fall, playing golf, being outside with the trees and leaves changing colors.
Yeah.
So that and going to football games. I love watching football, high-end football. So I've got friends with the Buccaneers and down in Tampa where I watch some NFL games. But it's nothing better than Saturday collegiate football in the fall.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things to do is bring the family to a Michigan game or a Big Ten game. And as they get older, I think when their playing days are over, I'd love to go to one other college each year to go take in an Alabama game or a Georgia game, a home game, and stuff like that.
Absolutely. How about your kids? Are they involved in sports?
Oh,
You
yeah.
got two D1 athletes as parents.
Yes.
I'd imagine they're pretty athletic.
Yeah. Football, basketball, women's basketball, baseball, and volleyball. So I'm a big advocate for doing more than one sport.
Have they picked one at all that they favored?
My daughters for sure favor basketball.
Okay.
But my oldest son's for sure favoring football, but he plays basketball. And then my youngest son's getting into golf. So actually that's going to be great to be able to go swing out in the evenings and play 9 holes.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So who was the best athlete you ever played with?
Oh, wow. There's a couple of amazing athletes. I'd say at Michigan, Anthony Thomas, we call him A-Train.
Yeah.
He was a tailback.
Great
He's a
player.
beast.
Yeah.
I mean, 6'2", packed a punch every single down. Chris Perry was a good one.
Yeah.
David Terrell, Tom Brady, Steve Hutchinson as the offensive lineman, probably one of the best ever now. Jeff Backus. I mean, the list goes on. Victor Hobson. So at Michigan, there was just but when I arrived in the Patriots, I would go up a guy by the name of Willie McGinnis.
Yeah.
Willie McGinnis, I'll never forget.
Monster.
Yeah.
He was a monster, and I'll never forget lining up one-on-one. Here you got Willie McGinnis. Can you imagine his technique after he was playing 18 years in the NFL? And back then, it was really hard to. I mean, that was a long time in the NFL. But I was thinking to myself, he had been playing in the NFL longer than I've been playing organized football myself.
Wow.
So
At his position.
at his position, outside linebacker, and going up against him, I can't say I don't think I won any match. I gave him my all.
Yeah.
All you needed was one, though.
That's right.
Who had the biggest impact on your athletic career?
Well,
Biggest mentor?
I would just say, my father for sure. He was one of the best motivator from a high school standpoint. And then Lloyd Carr. Still stay in touch with him today, and he's like a second father to me, and we have a great relationship, and we text all the time.
Yeah, it's so important. How about business-wise? Who's been the biggest mentor for you?
Business-wise, I would say Mark Early, who's the president of distribution side of Hines. He's been a great visionary of the firm and a great leader and man of his word, and so Mark Early at Hines. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, hey, appreciate you taking some time. I know how busy
I'm
you are.
honored.
And
Let's do this. We had fun.
It was fun. We
We'll
can
come
sit
back
here.
maybe in a couple of years. And
We
do
could
another
sit
one.
here and do this for hours, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
just want to thank you and appreciate the relationship with Hines over the years. And Trenton, I appreciate you sharing some ideas about dollar cost averaging and all that. Appreciate the work you're doing here. So
Thank you guys.
it's good hanging out with you guys.
Absolutely.
So let's do it again. Hey, I did get you something that
Uh-oh.
I wanted to give you. So
Give me some
you
swag.
don't get too sunburnt, but little
Yeah.
UV shirt from RFG for
Yes.
just to thank you
Nice,
for
nice
being here
shirt.
today.
I'll definitely
Should
wear
fit you
this.
if it doesn't.
Absolutely. Looks
we'll
good.
We'll get you one that does. So
Hey, I don't wear green too often, but for you guys, I'll wear green.
yeah, we'll get you a different color one if that doesn't work for you. So
Anyways,
Yeah.
hey, thanks, and
Yeah.
thanks all for listening, and everybody have a great day.
all right, good stuff, man. Thanks.